because we'll have something that will be beneficial for us all, and even for our children and for generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you. So you heard who was representing us, the clients. Now we're going to hear from the engineers. Mr. Robert Bodage will be representing Stanton. 2 minutes.
2 minutes sharp. So welcome everybody. Pleased to be here. My name is Robert Bordage. I'm with Stantec. I represent the engineering. I'm with Stantec Consulting Engineering. This is my first time to the island, and I've been here for 4 months now, and I really enjoy the adventure. So the role of the engineer on this project is to provide technical support for the design portion of the work, also to monitor the construction and provide contract compliance or help with contract compliance. We're working closely with the contractors on a daily basis. If you know that smaller building by the contractor's office is the engineer's office. So if anybody wants to stop by, you're welcome to come by and ask questions. Stantec, the other role of the engineer is to provide opinions on contractual matters as almost an independent observer. So if we get into some contractual matters, we'll look at this pretty closely and be able to develop opinions and to support the government. So I'd like to talk a little bit about Stantec as well. Stantec started this project in March of 2019, quite a while ago, actually 4 years ago, when we were actually engaged in evaluating the existing design. And what we did was we had to modify the design to bring it into the budget. So actually what happens is there's a reduction in size and scale of the port so that we bring it to budget. So we actually designed a 30% design and did cost estimating, and the cost estimating came in pretty close to where the tender came in at. We also helped prepare the tender documents, so we developed a new design up to 30%, and then we developed the tender documents for the bid program, and so then we fast forward to about September last year when Stantec was re-engaged to participate in the design phase, in the design build phase. The design was handed off to the contractor, so Meridian is now the task of taking the design from 30%, which we delivered to, and developing it to 100% using the criteria that was established by our team. So, I'd also like to say that the engineering team was involved in many aspects of the engineering portion of the technical discipline, which includes the structural, the geotechnical, the ocean engineering, which is developing the wind and wave forces on the pier, and also we're providing social and gender expertise and environmental expertise. So we're trying to, we are a full discipline team supporting every aspect of the engineering and technical portion of the design, including social and gender and environment. That's it. Thank you very much.
And I'd like to also acknowledge the Honorable Premier, and I think I saw Honorable David Oscar. Thanks for coming. So, if you are listening, I said there are 3 implementing agencies. You remember? You don't remember? Come on. The first agent was the clients. I want to hear from the back. The second agency, they're not paying attention. Engineers. And now we're going to hear from who? The contractor. He doesn't want me to call his name, so he's going to come and he's going to introduce himself. The project manager for Meridian. And everybody has got 2 minutes, but seeing he is the main man today, I gave him how many minutes? 20 minutes. So it's new.
Good afternoon, everyone. Quite a turnout, which is nice to see. My name is Peter Wattenhofer, and that's why Dr. Byrne didn't want to pronounce the last names. As you hear, originally from Australia. I've been doing this for about 18 years overseas, so around the world, in the Middle East.
Sorry, can you speak up?
Sorry?
Can you speak up, please? And speak a little slower.
Not a problem, I'll try and lose the accent as well. So as I've been doing this for about 18 years around the world, the ports. I've recently joined Meridian. Meridian is a company based in BVI. and they're growing, doing more of their jobs around the Caribbean. The role of the contractor, you've obviously heard from Robert, you've heard from Rolson, the client, and the engineer. We are just not the builders of the port, as Robert alluded to. They gave us a scheme to work with, and we take that scheme and we do engineering, design, we're doing procurement, and we're also going to do the construction. So the team you see in the island, there is about 10 of us in the office at the moment, about the same number outside. We've also got a team of designers that are in Houston, so WSP who are our designers. We've got a team in Holland at the moment doing temporary works design for us. We have a team in BVI that's supporting us financially with the finances of commercial, HR. We also have a team in Antigua doing procurement and some mobilisation for us. And then at the moment we're working with suppliers from around the world to assist to get specialised equipment here. So what you see here with the team here is the tip of the iceberg. We also have quite a big team that's around the world supporting us. So we've obviously been on, myself personally, been on board since September. As Dr. Burns said, we signed the contract back in May. And the team from Meridian has been involved since the start of 2021. There was discussions about a tender, the submittal of the tender in July 21 from memory. Then there was a contract award in February 2022, and then signing of the contract in May. We've done some geotechnical investigations. So for those that were seen in July and August, there was the barge, there was a crane out in the barge, there was some investigation works. We sent those samples that we took from there. They went to Sun 1 to be tested. We received the results of that testing in December. So what they told us what the ground was made up of, what rock was there, what was the conditions of the seabed, etc., and that allowed us to further our design. To give you an idea of the differences prior to that, there was about 2 or 3 locations where we had boreholes, which for a job this size, you really need more so we actually understand what we're building. So we ended up taking about 10 to 12 boreholes, so we have a very good idea now of what's below the seabed and what we're building on. So it's showing us what sand, what rock, the depth of different materials, and we've been using that. So from there, and unfortunately I can't show you on the computer, but I'll just talk through the presentation we had. I'll try my best to describe all the areas. Please jump in if there's any questions about the solutions I'm giving. So the project site for us is made up of 3 key areas. So there's Piper's Pond, as already you would have driven past today. That's going to be our main laydown yard. So that's where we're going to produce precast units, concrete precast units. We've bought a concrete batch plant from Turkey that's on its way to Montserrat. We're going to build a small temporary port there with the intention of leaving that on the island and being transferred over to the fishermen and the public to use. In that area, we also have a workshop for our equipment. We have a rebar, bending bar there, so inside the concrete we have reinforced steel, gives concrete strength. We'll have a small yard there for it. We've got our fuel cell there, we refuel our equipment, and then we have storage areas there as well. So once we produce the precast, or we're bringing in equipment from overseas, they'll be stored there. The second area that we have is down in the bay here. We see the white offices. So those white offices are project offices. As Robert mentioned, behind him is the engineer office. At the moment, there's not too much happening in the yard, but surely there'll be more things happening there. We intend to store precast units. There'll be cement stored there and other items as well. It's quite critical for us to have that area. And then thirdly, there's the port project, the port site. So the port site, for those that are unaware of the layout, is where the existing pier is at the moment. And we head west, head offshore. So we follow the bluff, and then we'll build the port out from there. So they're the 3 main areas. Part of the project site is also the existing facility. We have some dredging work to do there, and also some refurbishment, new vendors to come up with the existing Unfortunately, I can't show you the construction pier, but what we do at the front of Piper's Pond, there will be a pier that we make out of sheet piles, and we call that a temporary construction pier, and we'll dredge that out to deeper water. The idea of that pier is for us to bring in bulk material for the project, bulk equipment. Unfortunately, the existing pier is not big enough for us to bring our big cranes in, bring in bulk material, so we're building a specialised small port that will allow us to bring our barges in with materials, with aggregates, with cranes, with concrete trucks, etc. And there's also part of that construction pier will be for a vessel. So we have a vessel called Gulf Meridian. It's currently in the water in BVI. It's got another few weeks of repairs to be done. And then that vessel will be for us to be able to bring materials from Antigua, from BVI, anywhere else in the Caribbean. So we can use that. As I said earlier, the idea we're working with the government and Stantec to leave that construction pier in place to be an avenue for the fishermen and other users to use it. Obviously, it's not going to be a sheltered facility, so there are some letdowns there where we can't use it all the time. There will need to be another place for the fishermen to dock, the vessels to dock as well. Any large equipment that needs to be brought on the island can be brought on through that facility as well. So moving on to the areas of the work, as I said, we have been given a concept from Stantec and from the government, so it defines what they want at the end of the day with the design and how the design should look. The one slide I've got here is to do with the dredging profiles. So to understand the dredging works that we'll do, there will be a deepening of the channel from the construction pier I just talked about, so we'll make it down to -5 chart datum. And when I say -5, we'll be talking chart datum, so the water level is around 1 metre, and we put 5 metres below that to give some idea. Then with the Little Bay Port there that we have at the moment, there will be from Potato Hill all the way through to the existing port and new port, we'll deepen that whole area. So when ships come into the new port, they've got a turning circle, they've got a bay to come in, and the seabed will be lower there. So that's quite important for the ships to be able to safely navigate and get in and out of the new port. The existing pier, where offloading is happening at the moment, on the inside, so on the eastern side, we will dredge there as well to allow access for vessels to come in there. So we will go to -5 chart datum, which is about 5 metres below water level, or to right, whichever is first. And then we have some dredging around the pier as well, where we are, because of the material has got to find materials to wash down, and the material there of course is liquefiable material, so we need to remove that material and replace it with solid material, so in case of an earthquake, that material doesn't act as a mass and cause a failure in the new pier. So we intend to go down to -12 there, remove that fine material and replace it with suitable material. One important step, as I said, our contract is an EPC contract, engineering, procurement, construction. It also includes the social gender aspect, stakeholder engagement, environmental, and having worked around the world with these projects, it's very much ingrained these aspects of the project with these jobs we do. So the next slide I had here was to talk about the coral relocation. So what we have, we get an instruction from the government and Stantec. Within the footprint of the dredging, they're going through to identify which corals they require to be moved. I know there's been a stakeholder leading about that with certain individuals invited. So us as a contractor will receive that list from Stantec, and we'll move those corals. So at the moment, there's about 90 pieces of corals from where the new pier will be in front of Potato Hill, and then they'll be moved around to Wanda Bay or in front of the prison there. So we're waiting on finalising some refinement on that list, but we'll start that work very shortly and start relocating the corals along with the sea urchins. Yeah.
Maybe I can make a picture.
Yeah,
We have some technical problem.
So we're going to say anything has been gone? No? No? We're going to start a meeting. I don't see how we should understand what you're saying.
Yeah, no, I agree, guys. The market's trying to fix it now. We're doing the best. I think we could possibly send out some pamphlets after as well. So if
You should have had that prepared.
No, this should have been done before.
It should have been
nothing.
prepared.
Your expensive technical.
It is my fault. I'll take the blame.
You can't take the blame.
Yeah, because
That's not
I
good.
know this morning.
Then could we take your job?
It wasn't working.
Send you all a copy.
Today's last minute. This should have been done a few days ago.
So we'll talk about the video. Apologies, guys. I understand.
Is same as Wednesday.
For us, the front here, we see the drawing, we understand it, we yourself, not seeing it. Apologise for that, and I try and do my best to explain it. But for those that have contributed to the board, and you see the post on the side of the road, that is very much the layout, it hasn't changed from that. So when you drive to the board on the right hand side, you will see the layout there. The next slide I had here, which is quite important, I've been asked the question a few times, is to do about the structure itself. The structure itself is a closed structure. So what that means is the waves, the currents underneath won't go through the pier, but it's not a sheltered pier. So that means, when you go down the harbour, you see the breakwater that protects the harbour. This is not going to be the case with this project at this stage. As Robert said, during Stantec, they did the feed to the front end engineering. They looked at the various stages and had to reduce what they could provide based on costing. So the layout that you see on the side of the road and the post is very similar to what we're building, and it will be a closed pier. So there'll be some shelter there for the vessels that moor on the inside, and there'll be some shelters for the vessels that go to the existing pier. So unfortunately, I have a few drawings here to show you. Yeah, okay, it doesn't matter if I show it on the computer screen. And then lastly, the key steps for the project, just to have a look ahead, is we have the coal relocation. So as I mentioned earlier, we'll start to work on that. We're also doing some environmental baselines, so we've taken some water samples, we've set them away for testing. We're carrying out the social and gender training to the project team, and we're also implementing the HSC controls and measures for the works. Design, we're working through the design teams in Houston and also in the EU to work through temporary works with them. Very shortly, in the coming weeks, we should receive the steel piles for the temporary facility, and then once we receive them, we'll start the construction. We do have the environmental assessment plan to submit for that. Shortly again, in the coming week, 10 days, we'll commence the dredging of the existing pier. So you'll see our crane is currently here in the yard, walk down to the pier and start work there. And then in the background, we're working on permanent material, procuring aggregates, which we'll try and get as much as we can from local resources. There may be, due to engineering reasons, to get it from abroad. And we're going to see equipment coming from Europe and other parts of the world. But unfortunately, that's what I have for you today. It would have been a lot more helpful if we had the photos and drawings that could have shown you. You want to start with the comments? Or?
Thank you, Peter. Unfortunately, the projector starts to give us trouble. We are working on something. So before we leave here this evening, we should be able to show you the slide. We have 2 slide presentations to show you. You have 2. And I forgot to welcome the head of the PMO, Mr. Martin Parler, and the honorable Speaker of the House. I saw you. Thanks for coming. And we are human, things happen. So I apologize to you, and I apologize.
You don't need to apologize.
So the floor is open. We go now. So we will pause for about 5 minutes. We could do 5 minutes. You see, I'm going over time. But we could pause for 5 minutes on this slide. So, do you want to start your questions or you want to wait and see? Wait.
I hope those at the back can see. This is just the explanation of the project. I think you know the area better than myself. So Piper's Pond, we're explaining, we'd have our concrete batch plant, we'd have our workshops, we'd be precasting the concrete units. This is a small construction pier here that we'll build, bring in materials. Here was the office and storage area of cement, of precast units, engineer office. And as I explained, here is the port. This is the existing pier, and this will be the new structure here. So that's, we call it the causeway, we call this the road, and we call this the pier. So the temporary construction pier, so this will be at the front of Piper's Pond. It will be a sheet pile wall at the front and down the sides, and it's about the same height out of the water as the existing pier. And the intent of that is we can bring our construction barges in, unload equipment, unload materials, and then we bring our vessel in the Gulf Meridian with a special ramp there so we can bring in equipment and materials to her. And we don't have to rely on the supply ships from Typhoon Express or the others. We'll have our own vessel to be able to control our own destiny. So you can see here we've got a small ramp here. There are some discussions ongoing, and we'll have them in the coming months, and we'll go a little bit further into the project about what we can do to adapt that to make it more suitable for the use of the island. But at the moment, that's the plan. And to give a rough dimension, that's about 30 metres or so across the face there. The dredging profile, so I did my best to explain verbally, but now you can see it. This would be the dredging we do to get to the existing pier, to the construction pier. This here will be the approach channel that we will dredge to create water depth for the ships to come in. This will be the dredging we do here at the existing pier, so that's to -5 or to rock level. And then I'll explain a little bit about liquefaction, and this is the material here that we'll remove and replace before we start construction of the pier. Again, the coral relocation, Kirby went through it, but you can see we're a cluster of coral, which is what we've received from Stantec, and this is the other cluster that we received. I said that the list is being reviewed at the moment. Their biologist is coming back to do another dive, and they'll give us further instruction on that and where to move that coral. So the very broad sense would be this coral here moves down to here, and this coral will go around to the bay. So very high level explanation. So focusing a little bit more on the new build, the pier and the causeway. So again, this is just to give reference, this is the existing pier here, so that's the end of the existing pier here. We'll build a causeway along the cliff, and then we'll have a row area, and a row means roll on, roll off. So that allows a ship with a ramp, as you have now, to come in. They can put their ramp down, and they can roll off equipment, containers, etc. And then we'll have the pier here that goes out in sort of a southerly direction. In this corner here, we have the start of a breakwater, so it'll offer some protection, much similar to the rocks that are placed here at the moment. And the intent that we've received in the design documents is for that to be able to be continued at a later stage. Same for the pier. You can't see it too well here, but the dotted line for that pier to be extended.
Let me just ask a question. In terms of the railroad,
Yeah.
what happens if you have a larger vessel on the main dock?
Yeah.
Which means that the railroad vessel will not be able to work.
Yeah.
So, what I think that might be a little bit of a problem in terms of that if you have that. Wouldn't it be with the older pier, the pier that's there right now that they're using?
Yeah.
Is there some in terms of enhancing that also in case that happens to be able to facilitate using that?
Correct. So here the dredging, we'll do the dredging here. So some of those vessels, depending on their drafts and the depth of how they sit in the water, they may be able to come in here. And there's also a row out there, and we'll put new fenders on there. But at the moment, once you have that, you can still bring the vessel at the end of the pier here. You have the pier here that you could use, and depending on weather, you could have the pier on the outside. Obviously not the row.
Yeah.
That's also a scheduling thing with the port Authority. And then this is Robert explained about the studies that Stantec did the last few years, and this is what they came up with the budget that was provided. So yeah, there will be a little bit of work done there to try and improve that facility. And then lastly, we'll have we call a mooring dolphin. So a mooring dolphin out here is an area for us to tie the vessels up. So if you have the vessel placed in here and it needs some lines to go out and make it secure, they can run lines out to the mooring dolphin and keep the vessel in position.
What will be the distance from the end of the pier to the dock?
This will be about 40 metres plus minus. And the pier itself is about 130 metres and by about 20 metres as well. It's about the size. Also the height of the pier sticks now to the water will be about plus 3 metres. So as I said, the water level is 0 to a metre, so 2 metres or so out of the water.
And your what the bulkhead of the pier that you can build a pipe is from.
Yeah.
What's going to do that? What I saw before is to protect sort of bulkhead, let's say, or what's going to do? That should lend.
So that's 30 metres face. So the face of it, so pretend that was the Piper's Pond pier, that distance there would be about 30 metres.
30 meters.
Yeah. So about 7 or 8 metres coming off the top of my head would be a ramp for our vessel. So our vessel here, that would be a specialised ramp, and that would be on grade there.
Peter, the question. The cliff that exists now,
Yeah.
if there's any slippage, where does that fall?
Perfect. It's a slide right for it. So this slide here is in the red. Oh, I'm going to go back, sorry. The red was what was provided us with the design. So you can see how close the road is, the row ramp, and the pier was moved back. So what we're discussing with Stantec and the government at the moment is to move this pier out 10 metres and to create a basin there. So you see that shaded black area. So what that would be a ditch. When I say ditch, not just 2 metres, but 10 metres, 12 metres. We're just doing the design at the moment. And the intent there is any rocks or anything that would fall from the cliff would go into that ditch, and at the same time you could collect it and retrieve it.
But they also have a netting system that we use.
Yeah.
In terms of being protected.
Correct. And that's something we've stated as an option to the government, is along the top of the ditch here, is that we could put a netting system there to connect any rocks. But if you have a look at what's falling at the moment in the area there, it's all within that 10-15 metre range. Yes, that would be another step to protect the users. But we thought instead of trying to touch that cliff, and the money's involved in the additional works, is to try and leave it as it is and create a buffer for the safety of us when we're building it, and for yourself as well when you're using it.
And the other question, am I asking too many questions?
No, go ahead.
I got In terms of on the outer, the western side of the pier, down to now we have what are you going to use to do those? Are you going to build snippets or are you going to use rocks?
So it'll be a mixture of both of them. So there'll be a rock, there'll be like a filter layer and some armour on the bottom, and on the top we'll use a concrete armor unit. So it won't quite be what's there. We're looking at a different design that can absorb the weight of the wood more and disperse the forces.
Right.
Something similar
Okay.
like that. And as Robert mentioned, they looked at the design, what would have been ideal and what the budget allows. In the design, the structure here will be able to withstand the force in years to come if they decide to extend this all the way, and the structure will be designed for that. So, and that wall, and what we're designing it for is that wall could be 5 metres above the deck level there. It would offer a lot of shelter if they decide to go there.
The same rock and jacks, or whatever
Yeah.
you have here. You notice that armor wall, armor rock. You notice that it's curved inland. When we get,
Here?
yes, when we get northerly seas, it's
Yeah.
going to get cornered in there, and like a funnel, it's just going to shoot right over.
Yeah. So at the moment, our design is in Houston, they're doing a modelling of that, and that was a question we had before. The intent is to bring that as close as we can, and with the models we can say exactly what the design needs to be. And have a look. And with the X-Blocks we're looking at the moment, it can also absorb it, instead of trying to reflect it, we'll try and absorb that energy as well.
Let me ask you this.
Yep.
Who is Mobili and who is Sandec?
Okay,
What's
so
the
I can
difference
maybe
between-
answer two. So, as I said, there's three parties to the contract, one being the government of Montserrat, the client, and the 8 agencies that support it. Then there's Stantec, which we call the engineer. Now, the engineer is meant to be a third party to provide technical support and commercial support to the government. You know, Stantec is an expert in the field of designing ports and marinas around the world. The last project we actually used Stantec as our designers. They do other buildings as well, not just ports, but civil, structural, hydro, things, etc. And then Meridian is a BVI-based company. It's owned by two local BVI gentlemen, and they've been around for about 30 years or so. They've started off as power plants, they've done buildings, and of late they've started moving to the marine area as well.
Do you have anything that Mobili have built in the field that in the past?
Yeah, so
Any project that they have done?
Yeah, so in Antigua, there was a new pier built there just recently, the last few years. A cruise pier there, and that was Meridian. They're down at St. Lucia at the moment building projects. They just started a new project in Barbados. They've done the cruise pier in BVI, Totola. So they've done a number of piers already.
As the contractors or
Correct.
subcontractors?
No, as a contractors.
Okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Kenneth Carr.
Yeah.
In your planning of building the port, did you ever have a chance to look at the port that we have in Plymouth?
Yeah, I've been down there, and but I'll probably put this over to Robert because it's probably about the principle of the design, perhaps.
Yeah, interesting note about the Plymouth design is that the engineer, who's now my supervisor, he was Harold Westerman, actually worked on that project and was designing that project and was the resident engineer. I'm doing this one. During the 1997 or when the volcano evacuation was occurring. So he is actually part of that design, and him and I actually went and looked at that project just recently to explore how it's behaving over the years and where the vulnerable parts are. So yes, we have quite a bit of understanding of the existing pier.
Okay. The reason why I asked is that I have history. When that port was built in 1993, we had a large cruise ship that came and docked alongside. If you know the Cunard Sagaford, that cruise ship came and docked alongside that port with a number of passengers. They just walk off and come to the shore. Also, we have the Cunard Countess that was scheduled to go to St. Kitts, but for some reason they divert from St. Kitts and come to Montserrat. And those cruise ships are very long, large cruise ships. Would that pier would be able to accommodate those cruise ships that we have got in the past in Montserrat?
Because the category of the cruise ships is designed as pocket cruise ships. So it's 130 meters is the length of this proposed pier. So ships that are approximately that length with the gate of the Dolphin. So it's something like 130 to 140 meter ships. So the answer is likely not the large ships, but the pocket cruise ships, yes.
And are there provision made so that this port could be extended after it is built in the first instance?
There is potential for expansion, and there's potential for it to be a breakwater in the future. And the current design will accommodate the future.
Thanks.
In your speech, you stated that the aggregate for the project, some of it you get in from people here in Montserrat, and others you get in outside of Montserrat because of you. I wasn't clear on that one. Could you kind of explain that?
So the specifications that we have that came in this contract, both for environmental, for engineering, for construction. For the engineering, we have to produce concrete that meets a special specification. So we have to ensure that the materials we put into the concrete don't cause any issues with the concrete long term. So our aim is to try and get everything we can from Montserrat. And we've sent away aggregate sand to be tested, and it's being tested at the moment in the US. And based on those results, we will understand if we can use that aggregate sand or if we can't.
Okay. what percentage, so based on that information, some of what's on the island I'm sure could be used, either for the beginning or wherever. What percentage are you looking at to get from Montreal? If the stuff is not quite, based on your testing, not quite up to par?
Yeah. So we feel we can definitely get all the fill material that is used to create the causeway and even the armour rock at this stage. And then we're going to fill this, the pier in here. We feel that we can use the fill material there as well. It only comes to the concrete element, we're mixing concrete, so we have to be mindful of what we use there. So depending on the test, we'll see what we can.
And what's the percentage of each section? Do you have that?
I don't have the numbers.
Will you be able to get that number?
The majority, the majority of would be fill material, so that would be the large majority of it. The concrete in volume doesn't add up to be a big quantity compared to what the fill material is.
And you're stating that the fill, you could get probably 100% from Montreal?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So we're trying to use, I mean, it makes sense for the island, it makes sense for us as well. We're on a lump sum price. Anything we bring overseas, we have to pay transport on. So it makes sense for us to give to the community and get it from the community, and it's also cheaper for us as well to get it from the community.
When you get this testing from the US, would you be publishing it to the people of Montreal, the
I'll have to
result?
put it through the project team, so through Stantec and the government, and they go through there.
So I guess we'll have to ask the government if they're going to be putting that out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Could you please ask those asking the questions use a mic? Because it ends up being a kind of private conversation. I'd really like to do the question.
Yeah, we have the mic now. I understand clearly in terms of what the gentleman is saying. What is your name again, sir?
Peter.
Peter, okay. In terms of the testing of the quality of the material that needs to be done. And I mean, we have to be fair. I know for sure that, and I'm hoping that we can use the Montreal material for quite as much as we can. I know the armored rocks or boulders or whatever, I think we can definitely use for that, because if you have seen Plymouth and even here at the present port, we built some armored rocks years and years ago from local materials. But the actual structure in terms of the PSI that's needed for the concrete per se, I'm not too sure about the main part of the pier itself, unless whatever checks have been made in America in turn comes out and they say that we can still maintain those kind of PSI with the aggregate and so on. But I'm hoping that at least the sand, as much as the sand that we can use for that. So that would be a great thing for us here, if that can happen.
No, that's what we want to happen. Again, it makes sense here for the local businesses, and for us, it's cheaper to get it from Montreal than to go somewhere else. So what I might do, instead of getting into the questions, because we are on a time limit and Dr. Burns just gave me the eye.
Because we have technical difficulties, we're going to do it.
Okay.
Scared about the questions?
I just want to go through the rest of the slide as well. So if you've got a question.
Yes, the actual wharf. As far as I understand from you, so the public can hear, you are going to be making cement boxes.
Correct.
And putting the cement box down and filling it with dirt and stone.
Yeah.
That was your exact quote to me before.
So,
now, what is the height of those boxes and width?
Yeah. So maybe what I might do, I might go through the rest of the presentation. So I've got all the drawings there and explain the system, and we can do all that. So this is just to give a view to people, and I'll get to your questions. But this is just a view of where the pier will roughly be. This is a drone photo, so you can see where the rocks have come down from the cliff, and roughly where the pier will come out to, and you can see the existing pier. This is just an indicates where it is. It's not based on GPS. Sorry, not based on GPS, but just shows you roughly where it is. Go to the next one, Martin. So to answer your question, so what we've done is, because of the where we are, the environment we are with the water depth and the winds we get, etc., we couldn't quite do a full caisson. So around the world, when we do a gravity structure, we may do a caisson, and a caisson is a big concrete tub that can normally float. We get it into position, we fill it with water to sink it, and then we fill it with dirt. We weren't able to do that due to the environmental constraints we've got here as far as water depth and wind. So what we've come up with is, very much what you've just explained is these are individual units, and the best way I can explain it to put a picture in your mind is if you see them doing a drain in the middle of the road and they have the concrete rings and they put that on top of each other, that's how this structure will go. The only difference being, and there's another photo later on, is that we will stack them over themselves, we'll stagger them. So we'll get more strength through the staggering. So like you see a brick house, and you see that the bricks are staggered, we'll do something similar. We originally had some piles there. We decided to go away from the piles. Concerns about the rock, concerns about driving those piles. Also, once you put steel into the ocean, you obviously get corrosion. Okay, we had mitigations to protect against that. Also, environmentally, if we would have been driving piles for a few months, 6 months or so, you have the bats around the corner. We've got the businesses in Little Bay. So we felt that this was more an environmentally friendly method to use. It de-risked the project as well, and it also, for long-term longevity, it gave, with using concrete, now have the concerns you have when you put steel in the ocean. Again, to your point about using materials from Montserrat, this here we can build from whatever we can get from Montserrat, again, pending the testing, as if we had to go on the steel piles and sheet piles. They would have had to come from China, from Turkey, from Europe, somewhere else where the steel mills are. So that's that. And then to give you the height, I'm going to show you here, these here will be roughly about 1.82 metres tall, the base unit, because there's a foundation on the bottom. And then these units here will be around 3.3 metres high. And then the dimension of the units, this will be roughly about 4 metres wide, and they'll be about 7 metres deep. So they're quite a big unit. If you look at this room here, we might be lucky to get 2 or 3 of those units in this room. So they'll be very big units. And the intent is we'll build all these units in Piper's Pond, using the concrete that we mix here, using the labour that we use here as well. And this just shows the footprint of the pier. So we saw the overview photos of the pier. So there'll be an outside leaf here, an inside leaf and an outside leaf. And then for the Ro-Ro as well, we'll have the same structure going around to create the structure for the Ro-Ro. So the way the structure works, it's just mass. So the concrete unit is there sitting on the seabed. We have a special machine that will prepare the seabed with a gravel bed. And then these units will sit on top of that gravel bed and be built up. And then we'll fill the inside of those units as well, so to give it mass. And the earth will do we'll have the mass to react to the forces.
Is that after you dredge or before you dredge?
So we have to dredge all this first. So the first step for us is to remove the coral. Once we get the final instruction, we come in and dredge all this area. We replace the material on the seabed that we need to replace here, and then we start placing these units after that. We then fill the units up as we go, and pending the design they're looking at due to the hurricanes and the wave loading, there may be some requirements for us to drill through these units and drill into the rock below the seabed and anchor the units to the seabed as well. So that way, if any hurricanes come through or the loading on the outside of the pier here, you can withstand those forces. Okay, and then I've talked here about the key steps, the coral relocation, environmental baselining, the training, design that we're working on, starting the construction pier, the existing pier, the dredging, and then obviously the burning materials we discussed. So that was the end of the presentation I had. I'm glad you were able to see the drawings and the photos. Do we want to go to questions, Dr. Burns?
Yes.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Katya Jobs, a senior social development advisor and social anthropologist that has lived and worked here, and my heart is here. Could you tell us a little bit about what you're doing in this to preserve and enhance the existing social and community fabric that has now developed in the last 10 years or so in Little Bay? By that I mean, when the cruise ship season is over, you've got the yachts, you've got the kids in their summer and Easter summer schools and at the weekends doing snorkeling and swimming. It's the one free thing we can do, and it's one of the main beaches on the island that provides free, fabulous entertainment. And since we've had the groins put in, the reefs and the fish, even in the last 3 years, are really amazing. And one of the attractions for tourists coming in, not off the big boats, but for locals and yachts and so on. Okay. And then you've got the little restaurants and the bars. And when the ferry comes in, you know, people go down to hang out and line. I'm sure you picked that up a bit. It's burgeoning. It's really recreating and reconnecting after the crisis. What are you doing as part of this port development to absolutely preserve and enhance that burgeoning social fabric that is developing? And I'd like to know also what came out of, what are the recommendations from the social impact assessment, and what are you doing to take them forward? Because training your team means nothing to me in concrete terms. So 2 questions then.
Very good question.
I have to divert to Robert. I've got a microphone here. To Robert and to Rolson. This one. I don't know if you can hear me there or work. This one here.
Yeah.
You know, under the contract, I said we're the EPC, so there's certain things we do with regards to social agenda, environment, etc. But a lot of that has been driven from Stantec, from the government, the studies they've done over the past years. So they describe certain things we have to do within the contract, within the project. I mean, Rolson's mentioned about the trailers that are going to be procured for the fishermen. For us, what we've managed to do with regards to the effect of the Little Bay has been to change the design. But I'm sure that for 6 months, people wouldn't want to go down a Little Bay and all you hear is a piling hammer, you know, going from 8 o'clock to 6 o'clock. So that's a big advantage we saw would have on the community, have on the environment, you know, having the safety of our workers as well. And that's something we've been able to do. The rest has been done in the ESIA, which I believe is the government website. And they've gone through and they've studied those effects. I wasn't part of that, so I don't know it off by heart what it is. But there's certain things in our contract that prescribe us to take some of the mitigations that are recommended in there.
I suppose what I'm saying is that Little Bay has become the main beach and the lining point for Montserratians, non-Montserratians and foreigners alike.
Yep.
It's the only place we really have. How is that being safeguarded and protected and enhanced, or is the port just going to become a big port with big cruise lines coming in?
And again, that would be a question for the government to stand in some studies. And at the end of the day, would we have to build the pier, at least in touch again environmentally, and the social agenda, and they've done the studies before we arrived here, because there are effects. Obviously, if you put a big pier in the water, it's going to change the water currents, it's going to change the aesthetics of it, etc., etc. So certain things they studied before we came. I'm not sure if they're prepared to answer them now or how they want to address them, but we are going through certain things in our contract.
Good afternoon. I seem to recently start off all my little questions and interventions with disappointment. One of the things that we've always asked, or I have always asked about, from the time we started back in 1998, when we decided that we were going to live in Montserrat, build a back Montserrat, etc., is that anything we are doing should, and I'm preempting this to my questions, but this is for the government here. Anything that we are doing should be as good as or better than we've had, or else we're not going anywhere. Here we are in 2023, and I am hearing that you just mentioned, somebody asked a question, and you said that it will not be basically as good as, in some aspects, as what we had in Plymouth. Could you explain that for me, please?
what aspect? You're talking about the cruise ships coming in, or?
The facility of having the cruise ships coming in, large cruise ships coming in. Okay, whoever can deal with it.
Respond to that question. Can you hear me? I'll just talk without a microphone.
No, we recording and
Recording? How's that, okay? Okay, so when Stantec took on this project, as I mentioned in my introduction, there was a budget that was given by the government, and I think it was, I'm going to throw out some numbers that are approximate, something like $25 million US was the allowable budget. Mark, you can always correct me. But the pier that was originally proposed that was to emulate the same size and scale of the Plymouth pier came in something like 3 times that amount originally. So Stantec's effort was to take a look and try to give a maximum amount of pier back for the budget that was allowable. So we were constrained by the budget, and so we had to scale down the pier to make it work within that budget. So we came up with several iterations. We came up to, I think, option K, 13 different scenarios that was reviewed to make sure that we hit that target without giving you too small. So we tried to give as much bang for the buck as we could for that, and so that's why we went through various scenarios to come up with a design and a budget that would work. With every design that we had associated estimates that basically validated the construction. And by the way, as the bid came in for this particular design, it came in within very close to where the budget that was estimated by Stantec. So it was all about budget control, to answer the question, I'm sure.
Which is very sad, but you said $24 million US. As far as I know,
originally,
as far as I know, and I see here, it was 24 million pounds, not US dollars.
So I can't be precise on that.
Very well, but there's quite a difference.
Sorry, I was just going to add, because I think it picks up on your point and the lady's, Katya's point. So yes, cost was a consideration, budget, grant-aided projects, cost always comes into play. But there are key success factors for the project, key outcomes that are being driven by the investment, and they are primarily reducing downtime for the current vessels coming into the bay, but also enabling cruise ships that currently come into Montserrat to be able to dock alongside rather than using the tenders to come in. So it is not to radicalize the use of Little Bay. To go to Katya's question, I think it's to improve security of access, regularity of access, so we're not turning away the vessels that are currently coming in, we're not losing that trade, but also that we're expanding the access to the cruise vessels that are currently coming. So we're never going to be a mega ship cruise port on the base of this facility. The outcomes, so the design that we have now still achieves the minimum outcomes from the Caribbean Development Bank, and that was a reduction in the downtime of the use of the port and expanded access from cruise and cargo vessels. So in order to maintain CDB funding, it still had to meet those key success criteria. And that's why we went through the design process, because the other option would have just been to have stopped the project and to look at other ways of seeking investment. So it still achieves the primary outcomes. I just wanted to underline that point.
Just as you want to respond, I'll continue. I'm continuing on this. Just as a warning or precursor, that thing about the budget is strange. It's strange, and it is not making a lot of sense to me, because if we know when this concept was brought in 2019, in May or June of 2019, that was the concept of the port and so on. There was expected at the time 24 million pounds. I'm sorry, I'm not being distracted here. I'm trying to pay attention to the comment. You do not know what you're talking about, please. You don't know. You really? So the government.
Okay.
Just a minute. I don't want to be distracted by people telling me stupidness. Okay?
What I
That's
said
what
was
comes
sense
up.
always.
Oh, really? Really? Anyhow, what I'm saying, what I'm trying to get at, Martin, what I'm talking about is the situation. It bugs me that if at that time you mentioned about the time lapse and all the time we've lost and so on, helped to create the downscaling of what the plans were, what the intentions were. But there's this big opening in 2019, and there was funding when the new government came in. We talked about there was not enough money to do what was for with the plan that was there. That's the one thing I remember. And I knew at that time that the plan was where the rest of the funding was going to come from. It was there. People talking about, they don't know what they're talking about. Okay? So why the question that I would have to the government, not for here, is
What's the question? Then you need to let somebody else. What's the question?
Mr. Roberts, you distracted? You want me to go and come back?
when I come back, I'll be asking you about the breakwater situation, because that's a big change.
Let's get that.
Thank you.
Two questions. From what I see, in the real estate, from the designs that you brought up before, there's no provision made for fishermen. That's true.
The design that we have here, the design that I showed you there was given to us. So that's through the 80K that Stantec has worked through based on the budget. So we've been given this layout, and we can move a few meters here and there.
So there's no safe harbor for the fishermen? No. I know he said that. Remember, and I'm saying this, that we had a fishing competition the other day, and all the fish was sold before the fishermen came in. If nobody wants to buy a commercial vessel in Montserrat to fish simply because there's no protection in the harbor for a fishing vessel. And as a result of that, people Montserratians come back home in the droves, and they can't get fish to eat, simply because the fishermen here cannot even supply for those of us who are here. I'm saying this to the government and to whoever else, that the fishermen do not have a safe harbor. Second question, which the gentleman in the blue, you're making a statement, I made a statement, question here. I'm challenging something that the gentleman said. The wharf is 130 meters. The other gentleman over there said that the vessels that could fit in there are 140 meters. No, the Dolphin is 45 meters away from the end of the pier. 2 weeks ago, 4 vessels were in harbor. Windsurf, Starship, Sea Dream, Star Pride, and Silver Wind came some other time. All of them except one. One is 155 meters. The other one is 159 meters. The other one is 159 meters. And the other one is 187 meters. According to what he just said, none of them could fit in there.
You've answered your own question.
Yes, okay, so hold on, hear this. I want to go on to say this. It means that what happened yesterday, a tourist boat came in yesterday, day before yesterday, and because it was so rough, the people couldn't get off the boat to go into the tender. So, if these boats are excluded from getting inside here, and they are on the outside, and they still can't get into the tender because it's rough out there, it means that the boats, we had 5 or 6 dismissals already for the year. So it means the dismissals will continue after spending $100 million. That's my concern.
I don't really know what it You're right about the vessel size.
I'll just comment on the vessel side. We have a design criteria in our basis of design that talks about different vessels, and some of those vessels are those cruisers that you mentioned. I don't remember exactly which ones, but there are Windstar or others that are named in our basis of design that would be accommodated at this pier. And I said 130 meters. It's dangerous to talk about size sometimes, but obviously the reason why you have that Dolphin out there is to handle large ships that could potentially be larger than 130 meters. It depends on their configuration. So I wouldn't take the exact number I said, 140 meters, as gospel. Let's look at the design criteria.
Remember that a vessel that is parked in here will not go all the way up to the 130 meters. So 2/3 of it probably be the boat, but the rest of it is going to go beyond the Dolphin.
Yeah, potentially. It could. So I would have to go back to the basis of design. You can answer all the other questions.
If I could just add on the vessel size, just briefly. The vessels that you mentioned there, up to the 187 meter, they were included in the reference design. In 2020, we would have also visited all of the cruise and cargo ship providers out in Miami, including Carnival, who owns a lot of those smaller cruise vessels. They all expressed comfort with using this facility in the majority of conditions for that reference vessel size. There are vessels that currently come in which I think go all the way up to 210 meters. They might be stretching the capability of this in certain conditions, but the 187 was included in the baseline design assumptions. So yes.
Can I make my... Yes, thank you. I heard a rumor, and it seemed to be confirmed by something you mentioned earlier, that fishing boats won't be allowed to land on the pier. But I think I heard you talking about another pier that would be put in the bay for them or something. And it was also said that local boats, like just people who have boats, wouldn't be allowed to land on the pier either. So if you could just clarify that, and I have another question after that.
Thank you for your question, ma'am. And I say another quickly, but in terms of the fishing vessel, do remember that there is the existing pier as well, which the fishing boats stand up, and we're also looking at a more long-term facility on the Piper's Pond. We are discussing that at the moment. Obviously, it's going to cost additional as well, but it's something that I personally have discussed with a lot of the fisher folks around, and it's something that we are looking at. One of the reasons why we haven't gone full steam ahead with it is because we just want to give the contractor the opportunity to get himself prepared, get on with the work that he's doing currently. But the intention is before the project is complete that we can look at that aspect. And so because I don't think that while construction is going on, that facility would be available for the fishermen. It has to be after the project is completed, because there will be quite a number of large pieces, as he described, would have to be transported on that temporary jet and Piper's Pond.
I didn't mean while the project is going on, but when it's completed.
Yeah, so we're definitely looking at that. I have raised it. Sorry, go ahead.
So I don't think we should wait on another project that needs more funding. Shouldn't the fishermen be allowed to, and local boats that take people out for trips?
To use the facility in Piper's Pond, it would not be feasible during the construction phase of the project. But
no, I don't mean during the construction phase.
Right.
When it's completed,
yes,
will fishing boats and local boats be allowed to
So
land?
I'm saying it is something that we are actively pursuing. Thank you.
It's just worth saying as well that the new port will provide significant protection to the existing pier. The dredging that will take place at the existing pier as well will expand how that can be used in the future. So the existing jetty will remain and will remain open for use by some of the vessels that you've been talking about there. Yes, the existing jetty remains. Yes.
Good evening. My name is Shirley Osborne. Could you do me a favor, please, and show me can we see the picture with the actual photograph of the beach with the design of the pier? Could you go back? That one, yes. I have a couple of questions. One, well, the first is not a question. I just want to say that I am really interested in there being an answer to Katya's question about the social and economic, cultural effects. As far as the fishers are concerned, they've already been displaced. They've already been displaced, so the socioeconomic damage has already been done. And I got in just before you put that slide up, and I didn't quite understand if when you drop the big caissons, you call them? Yeah, whatever. Will water flow through them, over them, around them? Is the pier going to be blocked off? So what is in place for scum getting inside? Because I see St. Kitts, I see Antigua, I see St. Martin. They're filthy. What's going to happen to Little Bay? Is it going to go and stay brown, is my question. And if that's the case, then we have an answer to Katya's question. So water is not going to flow through? No. Okay.
I'll hand back to the government to answer the social and gender questions.
Yes, fine, yes.
For the technical questions is, maybe, sorry, Rolson, if you could go to the section view, maybe go down a little bit. Back up one. So this, and apologies if I didn't explain it clearer before, this will all be filled with dirt. And at the end of the pier, so you imagine if this is coming out, at the end we'll have a concrete wall at the end. Yes. So no dirt can escape, no water can go in. And obviously, as you can see, this will be a full concrete wall. This is the outside on the west side. And so this will be a complete structure, concrete on the side here, concrete at the top and concrete at the side.
So we can't swim under, we can't swim through it?
No, it'll be 100%. So the one in Plymouth is an open structure, piles and open structure. Yeah. This will be a closed structure.
So, which means that somebody will be coming back every 10 years? We have to find $20 million to dredge it? And will it be your company?
No.
Okay, and the other question I have, I didn't see, I know there's the pier and then there's the port, and I'm not sure if, what part of the pier is dedicated to freight as opposed to people? Are we going to keep them separate, or will they be getting mixed up in boxes and barrels and things?
That's the question for the port, how they want to run it. So that the whole pier here will be able to accept vessels along the pier, both on the inside and outside. Obviously, there's weather constraints, etc., etc. Obviously the preference, you want to have a ro-ro vessel there, but we don't dictate anything. We've been asked to build and design and build something that's a footprint like this. Yes. And then obviously the port will decide how they want to envision. We are talking at the moment, we're going through some of the details of how best to accommodate both vessels. So you have ramps that come out from cruise ships, the smaller vessels, the ro-ro vessels, to try and make sure we accommodate it. And part of the design is the whole pier here can take a harbour crane, so you'll be able to drive a crane up and down to be unload vessels. Obviously some vessels come with themselves, have a roadway to be able to transport equipment as well. So it's been designed to allow capability to have cruise ships and container ships, etc., etc.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Clearly, I shouldn't be competing with others right now. I have many questions I'd love to ask. Some of the questions I asked I don't think are fully answered. So I'm hoping that the Minister will arrange some meeting for other members of government to have a good view and question you as well. So, Honourable Minister, I hope you're going to arrange that. First of all, it is clear that this design is not designed with our future in mind, seriously. If it can't cope for fishermen now, if it can't cope for the vessels that you're aiming to market, I still don't understand. Well, I have to ask this. those vessels that you mentioned, if there are rough seas, can they actually dock? That's the first thing. Or what sort of rough seas will prevent them from docking? In addition to that, if you were to go out several meters, I don't know how many, how much would it take for you to have roll on, roll off, and still have a ship, another ship, docking? And lastly, I want to simply state that when, as government, we were approached by the British government to build a pier, they told us they would give us £15 million. I insisted that we do not design a port to match money, but to design a port that fulfills a purpose that is futuristic and can be improved if necessary. They came up with a minimum design, a minimal design, which is what would have cost much more. It appears that we've gone many steps back from that. I hope that you'll be able to show us the 13 scenarios at some other point. But lastly, there are so many things I'd like to ask. Can't do it now, it's not fair. The coral reefs that you have to move, the dredging you have to do, wouldn't that be less if it were to be moved out further to sea? Are you forced to do that dredging because you're closer in, or not?
So maybe to make it clear, that the 13 designs were done by Stantec. Once they've done the 13 designs, we're getting confused a little bit here, not to put Robert on the spotlight, but I can't answer your question because I wasn't involved. So apologies, I'm not trying to I wasn't involved. But one of the points you're bringing up, is very logical. I think there's enough people in this room, and you can get
actually dock. They mentioned very rough seas.
Well, obviously, where the design is at the moment, they can't be very rough seas.
They can.
Cannot. You will need the breakwater there. When the breakwater is there, then they can be docked. But at the end of the day, it is up to the master as well as the vessel to decide what they want to do.
Good afternoon, class. I think we're over time. And we know we have lots to talk about, so we'll be meeting you again next month. But a few more people want to say something. So, Mr. Buffon, your turn, and we have 2 more.
Okay, good afternoon. What I want to ask is that the protection between the Ro-Ro ramp that you're building and the present jetty, right? That's protection. You have protection material inside there.
Just to be clear, you're talking about here?
Yes.
Yeah, correct.
Yes.
There is.
Right. So that's what? Armored rock, breakwater.
Armored rock.
Right. Okay. For the fishermen's sake, since we're talking about fishing a little bit, I'm asking: is the cost to probably put a roll-on, roll-off there for the fishermen to slide, like a slip for the fishermen to slide up? Is the cost for putting in a slip there almost as equal as the amount of money it will take to put in the armoring? Because I'm asking that the fishermen get a little protection from that structure you have outside, right? And you say you leave an area perhaps 30 feet wide as a slip for the fishermen to get up. Because right now, the present slip that we are using is very risky and treacherous, right? Very risky and treacherous between the pier on one side and the rocks on the other side. You know, many fishermen have lost bits and pieces coming in and out of there. So I'm just saying, if supposing you can say, well, okay, you can tweak the budget, you could tweak the money that you have and put a concrete slip in instead of some of all that brick armoring, probably on the shallow part. That's my question. If the monies are similar.
Thank you.
No, there'd be additional costs there. Everything we design here has to be designed. We've got a 50-year design life. So it really has to be designed for all the hurricanes, has to be designed for all the mid-ocean that will come in. So there will be additional costs there. I mean, it's up to the government if they want to instruct us to do something like that, that's possible, but there will be additional costs there.
So what I'm asking here, the monies that you may be putting into the ramp at Hyper's Pond. If it were me, I would prefer to put the monies in at the pier because I know it's 100% safe.
If you were up
Right, so
inside
you can't
that,
escalate it.
then if you put it on Piper's Pond, to tell the truth, you're only going to have use of that maybe 50%.
So, but maybe clear about Piper's Pond. There's no ramp at the moment. We can go back. But the Ro-Ro ramp that's there is for us, and it doesn't go all the way down to the seabed. That's for our Ro-Ro vessels. And to be very clear, this facility here will be a donation from Meridian back to the community. Officially, we were going to take this facility out. I mean, the amount of steel that's in there, we can reuse on another project and build another temporary facility at the next job. And Meridian, the owners of Meridian, decided that as part of the discussions they had, to leave this in situ as a temporary/permanent structure. And that's why we're discussing with the government about what we can do to make it more permanent. But that ramp that's there is like the Ro-Ro ramp at the existing facility at the moment. It doesn't go all the way to the seabed. What there is discussions, and we haven't really discussed anything more than an idea of a ramp. At the end of the job, if there's additional funds or whatever it may be, to put some sort of ramp outside of it. But again, this here is not part of the project. We're building this as a requirement to get our materials and our equipment on site, and then we've discussed with the government as a donation, we would leave the steel there. We're talking about $500,000 worth of steel there that's being left by Meridian there. So that's something that we've got to take into the next job and build a new port with or a new temporary facility.
Yes, ma'am, everyone. I would like to ask the people at the head table, if this pier or port was to be built in your state, in your country, in your village, would any of you accept it?
They got more money.
I live in the mountains.
Because the reason why I ask that is that I don't think anybody here in this congregation accepts this port. So why are we building it? No one accepts it at all. Nobody is satisfied with it. It's a total joke. Why are we doing it? I mean, why? It's not good for us. It's going to be worse than the airport. Why are we doing it?
Oh my God. Okay, let's cool down a little bit. Let's cool down a little bit. There are many. I'm looking at the designs and all of that, and there are many possibilities for a lot of things. Probably not now because of the finance, but probably in the future. Like in terms of what I'm seeing here with this bulkhead at Piper's Pond. There's no breakwater system to say that is there, but that also can be put in by the government, and even while they're working here to be able to assist in that. And the other thing is that if you get back to the main dock, the main port for me, where you have after the Ro-Ro ramp coming in shore to the old or the present dock, where you say you're gonna have some armored rocks and this kind of stuff. That area, as Hubert was talking about, can be or could be slightly designed in terms of being able to create a space for the fishermen and their boats. But I'm told that it's been said, I didn't hear, but I just want to ask you. I'm told that it's been said that they don't want any fishers in that area but if for say something was done there, it will be a great shelter for vessels, these little fishing vessels inside of there. So these are things that we have to look at in order to move forward.
I'm going to get up. I made this recommendation since the grand opening sun turning, that you dredge a hole, after you finish dredging, you dredge a hole here, and you bury a 10,000-pound cement block 50 feet from the wharf. That will put it about here. And you run a chain across to here, and dredge here, and put another cement block there. And a very, very heavy anchor chain with smaller chains coming up to floats. And the fishermen can come in and park their boats inside here, and they can sleep comfortably at night. We cannot sleep comfortably at night, especially the past week. You see the amount of wind, and then you have seas. And just last week, one of the boats broke anchor and went. They found it, luckily. But fishermen of Montserrat do not have any insurance. Fishermen of Montserrat don't have anything that protection for them. And when we come in, and I happen to be fortunate enough in the previous government to hear the the Minister of Commerce and Works said, we don't want any stinking fishing boat inside here.
And I think,
I got a question.
Ms. Jones, I was saying this was 1 minute out.
I've been asking.
You've been asking, yes, but
I think
some
I'm not good
questions
enough.
didn't get a chance. And
How many times? But that's okay. I just wanted to ask a question on this picture right here, follow up from what he stated. He was stating that, but this gentleman right here was stating that he was disappointed, right? But regardless of that piece, I wanted to, and the gentleman, Peter, stated, and also Robert, was stating that this is expandable in the future, right? So my question one is, compared to Plymouth, because that's what everybody was talking about, you went down about...
Jesus,
Maybe she's not comfortable speaking to the mic. Maybe she's not comfortable speaking to the mic.
You stated you had to go down, I think, 25% of what Plymouth was like based on the picture that you originally got in order to make the pricing, right? Now, you said there's room for expansion on this. Compared to Plymouth, that you had to go down about 25%, how much percent more could this be expanded in the future for the big 200-meter boats that somebody else was trying to discuss? So that's one part of the question. So is it expandable in the future?
It's expandable in the future, but maybe not to the scale that you're anticipating.
So
I have not compared. It is expandable, but maybe not to the scale that you have described. What I would have to do is take the Plymouth Pier and look at our expansion potential and compare the two, which I am not prepared to answer intelligently.
So basically, if you're talking about possible expansion to help with some of these people's questions, that's one of the main information we'll need. Is it expansible just for foot, and you just tell us that and we get happy, and then when we try to do it 10 years later, then we find out, as somebody says, as bad as the airport?
No, I think what we'll do is we're learning from this opportunity tonight, and we've got subsequent meetings. And so what I think we're going to do on our next meeting is try to answer the questions that came up. For example, be more precise about the size of the ships that can accommodate this current design. I think we owe that to you. And we have that information, it's just not on the tip of my head.
Okay, perfect.
So I can provide that. Also, the scale of the future expansion, we can provide that in great detail, and we can compare the two for you and show you a plan of the two and how they compare. So I think with a little bit of time and homework that we do, we can answer your questions more precisely.
Okay, and then the last part of my question, and I'll give up the mic. The back area is the beginning fill wall, which Peter stated could be expanded out as long as the length of the actual pier. Right. So, but he just a little moment ago, he stated that when boats come in, they could go on either side, right?
For this current design,
right.
yes.
So in the future, if we want to expand, right, now we have no use of that side because we are expanding out and we are protecting that side of the pier. So exactly what kind of expansion are we able to have and the uses? So today, if this was built today, we could have 2 boats on this side and 2 boats on this side. But in 5 years, if we get money someplace and we begin filling this along the pier to protect the pier, then we lose 2 spots. So how are we able to expand if we're losing before we even begin?
It's a balance, certainly, and you are correct what you're saying. You're going to lose the berthing side on the seaside, but you're going to gain a breakwater. So it's a balance. You're going to gain something and you're going to lose.
So this expansion is what you're considering the breakwater, the fulfillment of the breakwater?
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. But I think what we owe you is we'll show you a plan of the proposed future design, which you'll need to see,
yes,
so we can do an accurate comparison.
Okay, perfect.
Good evening. I would like to leave here with a little bit of clarity in my own mind, and I'm sure, hopefully, if I ask this question, others might get some clarity. The area on the edge towards the cliff, where you have the bit of breakwater, is that what it's supposed to be?
This part here?
Yes.
Yeah.
How tall is that?
I have to look at the drawings we need in the temporary phase, but the permanent phase or the expanded phase, I was talking about it today, so I know the answer. It's 5 metres above the deck.
5 meters is how much feet? For clarity, so 15 feet high, and you're saying that is the breakwater that you could potentially put across the outside of the pier?
Yes.
That's what you're saying?
All the way up here. Yeah.
Right. So as I understand it, now, as it stands now, when we have those north seas that we get all the time, we're going to get one in another few weeks, I'm pretty sure. We're going to see waves coming over the existing designed pier. Not the existing pier, but that design, we will see water coming over it just as we see with the existing pier. What was that?
Correct.
Okay, good. So, all right. However, if in the future we find some money to extend the breakwater, the 15 feet high breakwater, along the outside of the new pier, then we should not see waves coming over the pier. Correct?
It's meant to be sheltered. There obviously you get a hurricane.
If it's really bad, we know that.
But the
Fair
idea
enough.
it becomes more of a sheltered harbour and it offers some more protection.
So my question, therefore, is, after establishing those facts, what is the estimated cost of covering the 130 meters on the outside of the pier? What are we running away from, and what are we not asking for additional monies for? How much is it?
I was going to say then,
you can't tell me it can't be done if you don't know how much it costs.
but that was essentially, the original design was for a breakwater that went the full length of the pier. So
Right.
we know roughly that was the unaffordable price that we had.
Which is, what's the extra that we're saving by not covering the full length?
It was around 70 million US.
70 million US to put some rocks in the water. That's what we're saying.
For the original design.
Okay.
Which was a slightly longer pier and a much more significant breakwater.
Right. So I think I have the clarity that I wanted. We need 70 to 100 million more dollars if we're going to protect the pier and not see water waves breaking over a brand new pier that we built in 2023.
So I'll hand over to Robert because there will still be overtopping on the design, but I'll let him speak to it from a structural.
There will be, on occasion, some overtopping even in the final design based on the probabilistic approach and the metocean studies that have occurred. There's significant wave heights that we're designing for. Those significant wave heights are about 7 meters is what is in our report currently. Significant wave height is a statistical average of the upper third waves that come along in a storm. And so we've looked at actually the last 125 years of storms and estimated this to be what that will be, a significant wave height. But the actual wave height in the worst condition could be almost twice that much. So there could be potentially a 14-meter wave, 40-foot wave coming over, and it will overtop the existing structure in a hurricane event. And so that is considered part of the design criteria. It's a very small probability, but it could happen in the life of the structure.
Okay, just one more fact I want to establish. You said to somebody just now, I like to manage expectations. You said to someone just now that the extent of the expansion of the pier, the jetty, might not be as much as we're imagining. So I want you to tell us, in your estimation, having regard to the mooring buoy that you already have out in the water, that you'll be fixing in the water, how many more meters would we be able to get on top of the 130 meters that already exist? It looks to me like you're only saying 10 meters.
No, I'm not going to answer that until I'm sure, but I would have to refer back to our original basis of design to answer the question and be precise. But it should be significant.
You just said it would not be significant. Now you're saying it's significant.
I'm going to deflect that question so I'm not wrong. But it's significant. It might be.
Deflect means something else.
I'm thinking something like 30 meters, but I'm not certain at this time. Okay.
So about 30 meters. About 30 meters is all we can expect. Just wanted to clarify.
Okay, what I'm hearing from Ralston is 40 meters. So
40. So
according to the basis of design, which I have to review.
So 40 meters is the maximum we can expect the future expansion of the port to be. So 170 meters.
Yeah, based on our current.
Thank you very much.
Have you ever seen a teacher lose control of a class? That just happened. Yeah, the school bus is waiting outside. And I'm thinking, let me see the hands of the people who enjoyed the discussion. Very good. So am I going to see you next town hall meeting?
When's that?
Once a month.
Yeah, but there's too much time.
We will be updating you, not just at town halls, we will be having press conferences. No. Every time I say 2 more, I end up with 5. So 2 more and no more. Katia and Shirley, no more. Katia and Shirley.
Guys, this is really important to have these discussions, and as you can see, there's a lot of energy and creative thinking. Buffy just came up with some really important points, so have others. As a social development advisor that worked with FCDO for years, right, and I've worked with European Investment Bank, the World Bank, on major infrastructure and bringing social in, my plea is not just to see this as an infrastructure and construction project. This is an economic and social development program to help catalyze growth and development in Montserrat. We are a tiny island. We are in a very fragile state. We need to protect every single livelihood and employment opportunity that we can, and 30 fishers having fishing is probably going to have as great an impact for the local community than some cruise ships that go to with a few tours. I'm not denigrating that, but we are such a small population. We're losing young people. We're hemorrhaging young people. We need to look at this project, and you need to look at this project in a holistic manner. And therefore, making sure we have a beach that is still clean and swimmable with nice snorkeling, that the fishers are safeguarded, that people come and lime at the restaurants, the few restaurants we have, and that it's a nice environment is really critical. We are less than 5,000 people, right? This is an entry and access point, an exit point for Montserratians, even just to go to the dentist, right? So we need to get this right for local people. Now, there are lots of people with creative ideas. Get us together more often, not just to share information, but help with some of these challenges, because by the sound of this design is great, but it ain't going to solve the problem. So let's not do harm with what's already there. We're hemorrhaging. Secondly, as you know, big construction companies, you are signed up to the international performance standards on social and environmental safeguards. It's not a nice to do, it's not a tick box. You have to do it. And you should not really be saying, we're leaving it to government or we're leaving it to the social experts. You have to breathe and feel and eat and feel the hurt and the hardship and understand the opportunities that we need to create on this island. Now, that's speaking with passion. Let me calm down. No, but the point is, I was having these arguments 21 years ago. I've stopped working because I'm fed up of having these arguments. This is an opportunity to get it right for once in Montserrat. Rise up to it, make it work, and get people around the table, and let's not do harm. You're not supposed to do any harm, and anyway, you should be doing good. And if there are opportunities to do that beyond just the construction of the port, because those cruise ships are not going to be the answer, the golden goose for Montserrat, we've got to make sure that people stay here, that people can live here, that people can survive here at the moment in the next 2, 3, 5, 10 years. It's that critical. So a plea for a more holistic approach. I know you've got to look at the technical design, but please step back with your team, and get together. Now, getting people together does not necessarily cost money. That's just good practice. So I know it does need more money, and we should be going to FCDO and making the case, if need be, with the evidence, but we can do that. Good social impact assessments should be informing everything you're doing. Please don't destroy the few fragile livelihoods that are starting to develop in Little Bay. We can't afford it. We're crying. We're struggling. And it could be a brilliant place, and people come here because you come into the Little Bay and it looks, you know, you've got your yachts and you've got your fisher boats, and it doesn't look like every place. So, yes, sorry.
Kathy, I think
I don't have a long question. Kathy has said almost everything I want to say. I have a question. This is not for the builders. This is for the government. Have you considered what's going to happen inside that port when it gets dirty and nasty? What's the plan? Because it's going to get dirty and nasty. We know that. So have you made a plan for that?
No, but they're the ones that usually ask.
No, I'm asking the government.
No.
David.
They don't have a say in that. It's one separate thing. They have no say in that.
I'm more say to say
Yeah.
what and government.
No, they have a contract, that's it.
And that's how you need to come together.
Can I just speak to the environmental?
Dr. Burns, I'm sorry about that. I really, that is my question. It's a question that must have been considered before the builders. It must have been communicated to the designers. We want to make sure that the beach, the sea doesn't get dirty and nasty. How can we do that? Did the government do that?
So to speak to both points, and I can hand over to Ralston as well, as part of the original design and the environmental social impact assessment that's been done throughout all of this, as well as the wave assessment and the assessment of wave action in the bay, that has been assessed, both in terms of impact to life. Yes, so the environmental social impact assessment, which is available...
How's it being implemented?
Sorry?
How's it being implemented?
Yes, so what I wanted to provide reassurance of... Sorry?
And it needs to be front and centre.
Yes, so I think I can provide assurance on behalf of all the project team. We start every single meeting off with a discussion around safety, social impact, environmental, before we even get to the infrastructure part of the project. So I do want to provide a sense of the centrality of that I think we all take very, very seriously. The build of the build of this project, from a funding point of view, from getting it through Caribbean Development Bank, the environmental social impact assessment was the highest precedent. So notwithstanding the design, the highest precedent. The environmental social impact assessment is a binding document upon the project, and it sets out very, very clear constraints upon the action of the project, the engineer, the contractor, and the government, and we all have our respective responsibilities. There are then resources on the government side, the engineer side, and the project side responsible for implementing, overseeing, and assuring the action in that environmental social impact assessment. The resettlement action plan, which stems from the ESIA, again, a very comprehensive document that looks at the compensatory action around both impact to current fisherfolk, to those who have livelihoods and businesses around Little Bay, and those who provide touristic and other activity. So everyone who has an impact around Little Bay, whether it be social, environmental, has been assessed. There is a framework for the consideration of compensation for those individuals. There is the grievance mechanism, and not all of that, as you say, is monetary. Some of it is also workarounds and compensations. So, I do want to provide the reassurance that the ESIA stands is a live document. There is the grievance mechanism through Sharon, through which you can contribute any concerns that you might have. But this is an environmentally, socially impact-led project. I want to make that very, very clear, more so than any project that we've had in Montserrat in recent times.
Can I just jump in really, really?
Yes.
Yes. The fact that I hear you teach, I hear you, I'm not going to take long. The fact that no water can flow in means, among other things, stuff is going to build up on either side, or stuff is going to move around when the waves come. Dirt, scum, styrofoam cups, nasty stuff is going to collect in there. All I'm asking is, has the government considered that, and what is the plan? Because I remember other plans had considered that, and there was talk about people coming back to dredge every 10 years or something. I don't want us to have to. We don't want us to have to dredge. We want Little Bay to stay nice and clean and beautiful the way it is right now. And that can happen with a differently designed port. So my question is has the government decided that we want dirty water in Little Bay? Is that what it is? Mr. Joseph, do you know? Dr. Joseph?
So I'm not conceding that the current design will lead to dirty water, because I think we need to, we can get back to you on the specific assessment that was done about the wave action.
Please do.
I did also want to say that the issue of maintenance is really important. You know, we see that on the current jetty, and that's why we're dredging away the silt that's built up over time there. And the port and the government will have to work on the appropriate maintenance mechanism for the project as well. I'll hand over to Wilson.
Just quickly to answer part of the question. Part of the mechanism in place right now is to do water quality testing. They've already started collecting baseline information. Peter would tell you that there are already samples that were sent off to the US, and those have been assessed. We're currently waiting to have a copy of the results. I understand the results are back. So we are taking that into consideration. It will inform other processes going forward in the event that the water quality does not live up to this expectation.
We know it's not going to live up. I see it saying it's Antigua has a wide open pool and still filthy because of all the boats and stuff that come in.
Right.
Because we are going to have is a dirty Little Bay. We are going to have a dirty Little Bay with this port. And our fishers won't, but they won't be fishing anyway because they have to get out or in. So the government, this is not for you, American, this is for the government of Montserrat. You need to fix this and fix it now. We won't have that kind of. We can't have that. Cannot have that. Unless this is taking us back to 100 years.
Last question. If the question is that some time ago you spoke about if the seas get marginally rough, like 2-3 days ago, we had about 2 cruise ships in and one had to leave because people couldn't get on the tender when it was open. I'm asking is that had the breakwater, had this structure been placed on the outside, on the end of Rendezvous Bluff, had this structure been moved 40 meters out on the end of the bluff, would that similar scenario happen, or would you think the cruise ship would be able to come around in on the inside?
A lot of questions there have to be answered by computer models. So we got, Stantec as we have, MetOcean does the models. It's very logical. You guys are fishermen, you live on an island, you know the water. You put something in the water to provide a break, you'll stop some of the weather, you'll stop some of the waves, you'll stop, etc. So it would improve it. At the end of the day, it's up to the master as well. But of course, if you put something in the water to break the water, it's like the Plymouth Jetty where it's located. It's on the lee side of the island, there's some protection there. You can bring the cruise ships in.
Because you see, why I'm asking this is because from the onset of this thing, when they started to put the thing halfway out the cliff, we already knew that when you have seas like we had 2, 3, 4 days ago, the cruise ships would be wondering, is it wise to go around it? Is it too shallow to go in? So this is why we always said, look, that breakwater structure needs to be on the end to create as maximum real estate on the inside. So the cruise ships can feel safer in coming in. So it takes away the risk. Okay, another example is that when the airport was being built in 2004 or 5, when it was being constructed, they had a large ship come in here, try to land cargo. And the ship was right on the beach a little bit. The ship ran ashore because it came in too much with the surf, right? And this is what the cruise ships are going to even take more caution than a cargo ship because of people on board, right? And that's why, in my view, and most of the that this breakwater structure should always have been on the end and not halfway in. You just should be too close to the place.
Thank you very much. And we are over time. If the school bus is gone, you could stand and see if you could carpool with somebody.
This is real life. This is not school. This is life.
We understand, Captain Johnny. Captain Johnny, did you enjoy the discussion?
I did. The introduction was not good.
Well, we had like a technical difficulties.
Anyway,
thank you very much, everyone, for coming. Remember, the port is our port, all our port, and thanks for your input. And we are still open to, yes, and as I said before, we'll be having the town halls every month and we'll be going to different communities. So stay tuned and you will hear. Thanks again for coming. Good night.